Hey, good afternoon. My name is Dustin Spittler. Welcome to Faith Fuel Devotionals. Thank you for tuning in. We're in Matthew chapter 5, looking at verse 21 and 22. You know that little inscription on the side of your mirror when you are looking, especially on the side mirrors of your car? It says, "Object in mirror may be closer than it appears." Today, we're going to talk about something that may be a little bit closer than you would think, and that's this idea of murder and anger. Jesus is talking about this in Matthew chapter 5, verse 21. Ye have heard it said by them of old time, Thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of judgment. Old Testament teaching. Verse 22, New Testament teaching. But I say unto you, Jesus said, Whosoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the judgment, and whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council, but whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Jesus is starting a trend here that he began to explain in Matthew 5:17 and following about upgrading the law or fulfilling the law. He says this phrase in verse 21, "Ye have heard it said of old time." And he's going to say that several times in the remainder of the chapter. And when he says old time, he means Old Testament. Here's what the Old Testament says. And then in verse 22, he says, But I say unto you. But I say unto you. That's another phrase that's going to come up several times in this chapter. And he's really talking about here's what the New Testament way of looking at an Old Testament commandment ought be. Okay, so I'm dealing with the letter of the law here in verses 21 and 22, and we're really trying to get to the spirit of the law, specifically in verse 22. So let's deal with the letter of the law or the old teaching of it in verse 21. What is the offense that is being brought out here? Well, this is offense that was famously given in the Ten Commandments. Exodus chapter 20, verse 13 says simply, Thou shalt not kill. That is a four-word commandment in English, and it's something that everybody understands. You're not supposed to kill, intentionally or unintentionally. There are punishments for murder, which is an intentional, premeditated killing. And then there are also punishments in the Old Testament for what we would call manslaughter or accidental killings in the Bible. This is something that's a very basic understanding, and it really gets its roots in the days of Noah. Genesis chapter 9, verse 6, God told Noah this when he got off the ark. He says, Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. Two things we get from Genesis 9:6. First of all, we see the institution of the death penalty. And this is, if you shed blood, your blood deserves to be shed according to God. Now, people don't like this idea of the death penalty today. Well, guess what? God made it up. So take up your complaints with Him. That's what He says. And the reason He promotes the death penalty and prohibits murder and killing, murder specifically, is this idea of man is made in the image of God. We are not supposed to tarnish and hurt God's image upon another person. Notice it doesn't say, if you're a Christian and you or if a person that is slain is a Christian, then only then should their blood be shed. Or if this person is a non-Christian, or this person is beautiful, or this person is smart, or this person is handsome, then you will have retribution upon you. It doesn't matter who it is. If blood is shed with malice, then the Bible says that life deserves to be taken to protect the value of God's image. That's why there is a such thing as a death penalty. That's what God instituted. And this goes back even further than Genesis 9, because in Genesis chapter 4, we see the first murder and the first murderer. The first murderer was a man named Cain, and the first person who was a victim of murder was his brother Abel. And you would think it would skip a couple generations from Adam and Eve before a murder would take place. But no, the first human born killed the second human that was born, and that was Abel. But out of jealousy and envy, he took a rock and he killed his brother, it says in Genesis chapter 4. Now, I'll have you notice this, that God didn't kill Cain for killing Abel. He didn't send somebody to kill him or to give any sort of judgment for that murder. In fact, he spared him. But after that, in Genesis 9:6, God says, well, if there is murder, there needs to be vengeance. Not vengeance, but recompense for that. So, what is murder? Somebody would ask. It is the unlawful killing of a human being with premeditated malice. That is what murder is. And God says, don't do it. Thou shalt not kill. What's the punishment for it? Well, Jesus says, according to verse 21, whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. Judgment refers to the local court in the Hebrew culture that would decide the punishment of the person in question based upon witness and offense by the interpretation of the law. If found guilty of breaking the law, the person would face the judgment of the Lord based upon the guidelines written in the law. In the case of murder and killing, smaller groups were allowed to take matters into their own hands in the law. David killed an Amalekite for killing King Saul in 2 Samuel 1. But I'll notice that when David committed and was involved in murder in 2 Samuel, God allowed him to be spared. And so this idea of judgment, sometimes the court was allowed to go up to based upon the circumstances, the shedding of blood should have the shedding of blood to be an even eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But that wasn't always the case. That wasn't always the case. In fact, in our courts of law, the death penalty is not always used, but it can be used depending upon the offense of the crime. The Jews had the same sort of standard, and based upon the judgment, they were allowed to make discrepancies and to make decisions. And even God, as in the case of Moses, as in the case of David, he spared people certain times, as in the case of Cain. And so oftentimes it was a court's decision to figure out if it was a purposeful killing, a self-defense killing, or an accidental killing. And so there were all these sort of contingencies and scenarios that would be taken into consideration. It wasn't just, somebody was killed, then that person needs to be killed. They had to face judgment. And all he is saying here in verse 21 is that if you kill somebody, you're going to stand before judgment. And there's danger to that. And you're going to be judged. And if that court deems guilty, then the judgment of God will be issued through that court. And there's all sorts of laws. You can look at Exodus 21, 12 through 13, talking about manslaughter laws and things like that. Numbers 35:11, talking about accidental persons, of accidental killings, people running to a city of refuge that God would set up for that court to be heard. And if they weren't at that city of refuge, they could take somebody's life, the avenger of blood, if you will. There's all sorts of situations here in the Bible, and there gives contingencies. So that was the Old Testament way of looking at it. If you killed, you're going to face judgment by courts. Now here's the New Testament law. Notice in verse 22, Jesus said, if you are angry with your brother without cause, now you're in danger of judgment. So the same sort of punishment being danger of judgment, the same sort of recompense, if you will, was not just for killing or for murder, it was now for anger. And then he steps it up a little bit more. He says, if you shall say Raka, now you're in danger of the council. And if you say fool, you're in danger of hellfire. Now, notice that there are three levels of offense and a punishment here. The first one is anger without cause. Now, there is a right to be angry at certain things. Listen, if somebody hurts a child, there's a right to be angry. If somebody hurts a innocent, defenseless little old lady, there is right to be angry, okay? If somebody takes advantage, there are rights to be angry. But if you're angry without cause, if you're just angry to be angry, now we have a problem. This word angry means to be enraged, to have wrath, or to exasperate. Being angry with someone is enough to bring the judgment and decide whether it is justified enough. What he's saying is, if you are angry, God may judge you for that. Now, there's no courts that's going to say, well, thou shalt not be angry. This is God's judgment. He will bring judgment on you if you are angry without a cause. 1 John 3:15 says, whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer. Before we ever get to the murder phase of somebody's, uh, wrath, it starts with the anger. And that's what happens every time. Before Cain ever picked up that rock and threw it at his brother, hit his brother with it, he was angry first. Big issue. We have to get it early. See, objects and mirror are closer they appear. How's your anger? Do you get angry about things without a cause? Do you get unjustifiably angry about things? Let's calm down. If you shall say raka, which means empty one or worthless, you shall be guilty of the council. Now, the council was the Sanhedrin, which was a 72-member council that was made up of chief priests, elder, and people of the scribe. This was a more serious case. Now, he's not saying that if you say this word raka, you're going to be taken in front of the Sanhedrin. In fact, the Sanhedrin didn't really care about this, okay? They didn't care what Jesus had to say. But he's saying, like, if you say something off color or mean or callous to even a brother, there's a more serious punishment to that. And if you say fool, you're guilty. You're in danger of judgment. And this idea of fool literally means blockhead, interesting word. In hell means a valley of suffering. Now, he's not saying here, if you are angry without cause, you're going to the judgment. He's not saying here, if you say raka, you're going to the council. He's not saying here, if you say fool, you're going to hell. He's saying you're in danger of it. You're in danger of it. You're in danger of it. And this idea means you're playing with fire, literally. You're on thin ice. You're going down a path that is dangerous. And we have to be careful. Listen, well, I'm not murdering people, Pastor Dustin. I've never really taken a gun and shot somebody. I've never really picked up a baseball bat and hit anybody in the face. I've never really thrown my fist. Yeah, but if you talk that way, if you have these emotions and feelings in your heart, how far are you really from that? If you get mad enough, how far are you really from doing somebody serious harm? There are school shootings, there are violence and violent acts all the time. And all these people, I guarantee you, all these people who commit these acts of violence start off by saying, I hate, or speaking words that are mean and vengeful. And it just takes a little bit of time. And you get kind of used to it. Next thing you know, something has been done that there is serious repercussions for. Objects in mirror are closer they appear. And Jesus is saying, yeah, watch out for murder, but also, how's your anger? How's your anger? Something for all us to think about. Have a great day. God bless you.